Yeah, I mean, the idea behind it comes mainly from positive psychology, but the issue, as you mentioned, is when you want to improve your life, change something, whatever it is, you want to get better at whatever you're doing, doesn't really matter. We often have a tendency to think of change in really like gargantuan, really, really big scope, right? The scale is very large. And when you go into it, you realize like it requires a lot of energy and a lot of mental capacity. And it's really almost daunting, almost diminishing, that you're not really able to do it because there's so much pressure. So eventually what you try is like you try to make a big pivot in your, or big change in your life, and then suddenly realize like you can't do it anymore. So you kind of revert back to your comfort zone. And this is where tiny experiments, which are very simple behavioral experiments, come into play. The point of change, sustainable change, is mainly based on the fact that you want to improve and implement in your life slight behavioral changes, nothing too major. The issue with that, or the idea behind that, is that once you successfully implement a small behavior change, you can implement another and another, and you are successful at this. In other words, what you are manifesting to yourself is that instead of like, I'm a great reader and I read 150 books a year, and currently I'm not reading anything, I can't read because I can't focus, you change in your mind from I don't read at all to I'm a reader, right? And suddenly you can read 5 pages a day, which means you are a reader because you read every day. And then after a month, you've read your first book, and in 2 months, you improved your ability to read a little bit more because you are better at focus. So suddenly those little behaviors change into behavior patterns that become repetitive and effortless. You do it automatically without necessarily investing more energy into it. And that's what changed about you. Suddenly you are, when you look at yourself and you make like self-definition, I don't know, someone says like, I'm a man, I'm my age, I'm a psychologist, and I would say like, I have a dog, I'm a reader. And how does that manifest? Well, I read every day. 5 to 10 pages in the morning and 5 to 10 pages in the evening, but I do it every day, or I do it 5 times out of 7 per week. That defines me as a reader. It's an automated behavior, right? You don't have to think about it. And that's what little experiments are all about. Or tiny experiments are about. It's about introducing a small behavioral change that does not require too much energy or too much attention in order to slightly improve or change who you are. So then you define your self-definition of who you are. And then these things become effortless and part of your life.
Wow. So how can we help people to switch from the thinking of being, having the gigantic goals and fail toward onto having small little step and little thought process for them to build a new behavior and new identity?
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having big or large goals or almost impossible goals. Like this is, if you shoot for the stars, right? It's all right. Shoot for the stars. That's good. Now, the problem with the big goals is that once you aim too big, it also becomes quite general. And so what we lose is the laser precise or laser focused, precise definitions of what the success means. And this is where it becomes an issue. If you have a big goal and you're kind of like moving towards that goal, it becomes harder and harder to track whether you've made steps towards it and whether the goal is closer or not. How far are you from fulfilling it? And do you feel successful or not? So in order to change that, we need to also change the scope. So have a big goal, that's great. Don't go away from it. It's your vision. Yeah. But then think about what specific small things would make you a little closer to that vision. And then these needs to be as precise as possible, because when we finish them, we want to be able to tell ourselves that we've done them and that we felt success, we felt the victory. And for that, they need to be very specific, right? They need to be very, very specific and not too demanding and not too long-term oriented, something that can be done within a month or 2 weeks or 4 weeks or something like that. So in the talk, I give an example of focus, and focus has become a massive issue nowadays. Inability to pay focus, clustered focus, shattered focus. Those are all the words that are being sort of like talked about. Recently I listened to one of the newest editions of Huberman podcast, Andrews Huberman podcast, and he was also talking about the ability to pay attention as a big issue now among the younger population. That doesn't mean they're broken, but it means that they have so many things to pay attention to, and they try to do it at the same time, that their ability to deep focus gets kind of destroyed. Now, imagine you want to become better at focusing. You want to become better at, you want to become an entrepreneur. You want to establish your company and be like Elon Musk or whoever, right? But in order to get there, maybe you need to learn some skills. And one of those skills could be ability to focus very deeply onto one or two ideas for extended period of time. But now when you try to do that, you take your phone, you start texting, or you see an email, you reply it, or you go to watch the video on YouTube, you switch to TikTok, and before you know it, you're completely distracted. Now, so how can I change that? The first step is to imagine how it is different in the future. So now imagine I became good at paying focus, or I became good at focusing. How does that show? What is the behavior that is observable? Right? Not how I feel about it, but if someone else looked at me, what would they see if I'm paying attention or if I have full focus? Now, after you do that, you will write it down and say, like, so this is how the future looks when I do this. Now, how do I get there? What steps can I make to get better at this so I can see this result in the future? Well, one of the things would be that I do not reach for my phone when I read a book. Right? Okay, so let's see how long can I read before in my head I think I need to have a look at my phone. Right? So you open a book, you set a timer, you open a book, and that's your first tiny experiment. And after 60 seconds or 45 seconds, you think about, oh, I want to check TikTok. And you're like, what's going on with my friends, right? And you're like, and you mark it down. I managed 45 seconds without distraction. And the next day you try again, and the next day you try again, and the next day you try again. And you take note of that. And every single time you go to read a book, you tell yourself, today I want to focus a little longer. I want to focus for 2 minutes. I want to focus for 3 minutes. I'll get ready. Now I'm going to be reading book, and I'm going to be focusing only on that. And I guarantee you, after 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 weeks of doing this, you will increase your ability to push away distracting thoughts to 15, 10, 20 minutes. And 20 minutes, 25 minutes is a good enough chunk of time to actually get things done, come with good ideas, push your projects forward and whatnot. So you'll become better at managing your life and one step a little closer to the big goal that you have envisioned.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's about observable behavior, and it's about observable behavior from the perspective of objective observation. Right. So how do I get to that situation, and then the steps towards that?